And one thing that is good to get into the habit of is to keep a CPD log. And the example on here is a simple sort of idea of the kind of thing you can use. You don't have to use it exactly like this one. It's not like an official way of logging CPD. It's just something that I personally use. So on here, you can see you've got your record of a CPD activity, name and year. So you might want to do one per year or per month or quarter, whatever you want to do. So you can log what you did. So it might be, for example, you read an article about cardiac arrest in a medical journal, when you did it, and put the date down, because if you put yesterday, for example, then look at it in 2 months, you won't know exactly what it was. Where you did it, so it might be at home. The number of structured hours. So if you've gone about this as a structured piece of CPD, you've made a conscious effort to say, right, I'm going to sit down for an hour and read this article and think about it and maybe update my glossary, then that would be structured hours. Unstructured hours might be something you just did. So you might think, well, actually, I had a really good conversation when I was on an interpreting assignment or waiting for an interpreting assignment with a doctor who was also waiting. And I spoke to him for half an hour, and that was something that I hadn't planned in advance. You can also put your learning outcomes. So generally, if you're structuring activities, then you will have specific outcomes that you're trying to achieve. And this is important because it helps you to know whether or not the time you spent was useful. So if you put down, for example, I want to learn about cardiac arrest, and then you learnt about cardiac arrest by reading about it, you can then think about it afterwards and said, right, have I achieved the outcome? Have I achieved my objective? And if you think, yes, I now know about cardiac arrest where I didn't before, then you've achieved that particular objective. Why you did it, it might be to improve your vocabulary. It could be to get familiar with a new subject, learn about cardiac arrest in general. So lots of different things. What you learned could be a summary of what you learned there. So it might be as simple as I learned about cardiac arrest causes, signs and symptoms. How I've put the learning into practice could be something that you fill in a couple of weeks later when you've actually had an assignment about that. So you might come back and say, oh, I'm really glad I read that article because I was able to use 3 of the new words that I learned in an actual assignment. It might just mean that you're more confident at taking on assignments. So there's lots of different ways to put it into practice. The difference the learning is made to your practice. So again, that could be confidence. It could be the fact that you've grown in knowledge. It could be that you're able to use the actual terms in an assignment itself. And then you also might want to make a note of additional learning I might do. So for example, if you were reading that article on cardiac arrest, it might have mentioned a particular procedure in passing, but not really gone into detail. So you might think, well, actually, next time that I do some CPD, I want to find out more about that procedure. So one piece of learning can then lead off into another piece of learning a bit later. You don't have to do it the next session. It can just be something that you want to note down to do at another time. But it is useful to write that down because, again, if you're anything like myself, even though at the time you'll think, right, next time I must do this, if you go back to that in a week's time and think, what was it I was going to do? It could just elude you and you can't remember, and then you'll do something else, but then it'll come back to you another time. So, keeping a log like this really helps you to structure what you're doing. It also maybe can help you to make sure you cover a wider variety of different subjects, because you can look back and think, right, what have I already looked at? And where else can I structure my CPD? What else can I concentrate on?